Hey, okay, so let's talk about science and social studies for next week. It's going to be, I think it'll be fun. I think you'll like it. We're talking about first and social studies. We're going to do the 2 weeks because we just got our curriculum, so we're trying to catch back up next week. The next week it will be much smoother. It'll only be 1 week of science, 1 week of social studies. So this next week we are doing first, it was democratic principles. So I just want you to talk about the principles of what it is to be an American. We're so lucky to live in this country. I know that right now it feels a little bit weird, and if you watched any of the debate on Tuesday, it was very intense. But no matter what, the founding fathers knew that even though things were going to be tense, there are rules in place for a reason. So we, as a class, we took a vote about puppies, kitties, or horses, and which would be the best pet. And the majority won of dogs. People thought puppies were the best pet. We had 10 people in here, and 6 voted for dogs, and then 3 voted for cats, and 1 voted for horse. So the people who had cat or horse, they voted. Their voice was heard. But in our country, we are lucky that even though you may not agree, we go with what most people want for a short time. And then there's another chance to change things. So we have to get more people to agree with us on something. And that's what we are talking about this week. So the first thing we were talking about is fairness. We want things to be fair. Sometimes fair doesn't mean the same thing for me as it does for you. Like it wouldn't be fair for me to ask you to drive a car to HEB and pick some stuff up because you're a kid, you can't drive. That's not fair. But it is fair for me to say, I'm going to give you this paper. Can you please write your name and can you please answer as best you can? That is fair. Fairness is asking someone to do what they can do in their best, at their best. So fairness helps everybody get what they need to be successful. And then we also talked about equality. Equal is also one of those subjects where it's a little bit touchy. Everybody should have the rights to do things the same, but sometimes what looks right for you might not look right for me. But the point is that they need to do what's right for them, and everybody should have that. It should be allowed. So all people are going to be able to be successful, and that's the point. That's the point of equality. So if you and me, we're girls, we should be allowed to read just like boys were allowed to read. And a long time ago, that wasn't allowed. Girls were not allowed to go to school. Girls were not allowed to do those things. And that's not okay. That's not right. The same thing with like people with different skin colors. People who are light skinned like me, they were given a lot more choices than people with darker skin. And that was not fair. And so those rules have been changing, and it's taking a long time because some people are not, they're not being kind, and they're not understanding, and they're not being patient with others. And so we are working towards making each of us better. And that's the point of democracy. Democracy is trying to make everyone better. And then the other thing is we try to do things for the common good. Now, we're not saying that everyone should just get free stuff, but we should do things that are helping other people. For example, if you're outside playing and you see that there's one person who isn't playing at all, you might invite them to the game. But then they come in and they're like, well, I want to play this game. Well, everybody else was playing a different game, so they need to join the actual game that you're playing. And that is common good. That's including others, but also asking those other people to participate the right way. And that's one of the things that we talk about also is conflict. Conflict right here. You can see this picture of the boy and the girl, and they're fighting. And conflict happens. And it's not a bad thing to have conflict, but it's important to listen to what other people have to say, and then to help get a conflict resolution, which is sometimes a compromise, compromise means that you give a little bit and you say, okay, I'll do this, and then you the other person gives a little bit. So like this school thing is a good compromise for us right now, because I am making these videos for you so that you can still do the schooling that everybody else is doing, but you're doing it at home, which makes you safer for your family and what's right for your family. And so conflict resolution is when you figure out what is the problem, what happened, why did it happen, what can I do about it, and then also asking for help. So ask other people to help you if you don't know what to do. It's not okay to hit. It's not okay to scream. It's not okay to call names. And sometimes you see people who are grown-ups calling each other names and not acting like adults. And that's too bad, because conflict can be resolved if everybody is listening to each other and is trying to make compromises and agreeing, okay, I don't want this, but I do want this. So I'm willing to do this job if you're willing to do this job, so that we can meet in the middle. And that's what democracy is about. Democracy is about that. So in here on the back, this is your homework. This is what I'm going to grade. I want you to draw a picture of you solving a problem. I had some people draw pictures of when their mom was mad that they didn't clean their room, and they didn't want to clean their room. And so there was a conflict. And the way that they solved the problem was they told their mom that they would clean their room and they would get their work done if they could get a little bit of help, because they were feeling overwhelmed. And so instead of the mom getting angry, the mom understood that the kid didn't really know what they were supposed to be doing. So then she helped them, and that was a good compromise. That's not always the way it works, and each family is different, but that was one of the examples I have. The other thing we're going to talk about this week is the government. So there's 3 branches of government there, and then there's a lot of different little tiny pieces. What I just want you to take away from this is that there is the 3 branches of government. There's the executive, which is the president. The president is the executive branch of the government. And then there is the legislative, which is the Congress. Congress is the House of Representatives and the Senate. And those are the people we vote for who go in and make the laws. And then the judicial branch is at the Supreme Court, and the executive branch will nominate, and then Congress will vote on whether or not those people should be the judicial branch. And every one of those is supposed to check each other and make sure everybody's following the rules. And so that's what they do. And then voting and elections, that's another thing we're talking about. So voting is when you say, this is what I want. I want to vote. And I want you to know this is what I want from me. And you don't have to go in. A lot of times voting is anonymous, so people don't know. Anonymous means that you're not saying who you are. But you don't know who picked them, but you know that most people chose this person or that person. And then elections, they happen so that we can pick the leaders that we want. And so sometimes the people you choose don't get voted in, but that's okay too, because then in a couple more years, you can go and say, this is what I want. And you can hopefully have enough people who agree with you, and that's what you pick. Okay, so the local government, we're talking about our local government today. We have the mayor, and we also have the governor. So the mayor, if you and your mom can Google, ask Alexa, who is the mayor of Seguin, and then who's the governor of Texas. And then you will know those ones. And I'm going to give you a grade. I'm going to give you 2 points for this one. I'm going to give you 5 points for this one. So the social studies grade for next week will be 7 points worth of work. And so that shouldn't be too bad. And then we made this book, but I'm not going to send it because it did not go well. It was not a lesson that I thought. But basically what I did is I have these seals. So we have the president, the Congress, and the Supreme Court. But this is just a little too hard. So I'm not going to even send it, so you don't have to worry about it. Okay. And then, so that's social studies. And then for science, we talked about the earth. I don't have, if you can try and do this at home, this is the lab we did. It was pretty fun. I don't have an extra balance to send home with you. So maybe you could just if you have a kitchen scale or something like that, you can balance the different sizes of rocks and then make a guess. Remember, we talked about that. The scientific method is purpose and hypothesis, materials, procedure, results, conclusion. So use a scientific method and make a guess, and then draw yourself a little picture of what you did. And then you will have an assessment based on what you read in here. And it is just answering the questions here. So Mrs. Alexander or Mr. Alexander, you can read this to her, but just have her pick the answers. And then the other thing we did in science was this. This is a habitat book. This is something we talked about in our science in there. So if you want to color this and you want to read the words and talk about it, and then there's little parts that you can label. And I gave 10 points for this book. So I would love for you to complete this and have this for me. That's part of your work for next week. And that is Science and Social Studies. And I hope that helps you. And I hope you have a great day.